And the workers' ultimate betrayal of Alsar was they had an agreement that they were going to use Alsar over and over again to create this, to create what was needed to get the Infinity Blade to work. But what they weren't planning, or what Alsar wasn't planning on, was having his memory wiped. And that the worker would essentially be able to checkmate Alsar by getting him to agree to this process, but then in that process, causing him to forget who he was. And while that was happening, Alsar was simultaneously devising a way to lock him in a soul cage forever, and therefore get the Infinity Blade himself, and then be able to charge it himself, and then have control over the Deathless. So that event happened, and that's where we kind of found ourselves in this situation. So when the worker finally gets free of the Vault of Tears, he's pissed. Like, that's not what he expected. It's not what he wanted. And so he very quickly moved up his timetable of time to cleanse this thing again and start over.
Yeah, and he was trapped in there for a long time. And so he had a lot of time to deliberate.
We do see in the intro where Alsar is holding the blade and pointing at the worker, and the worker's locked up.
Being sealed in there.
Yeah. Right, being sealed in. And obviously at that point, the assumption then, based on what you're saying, is that he still had his memory at that point. So what unfolded plan-wise such that his memory would be wiped, and is Tell somehow involved in this? Or?
Yeah, so... Oh, go ahead.
So just... so part of the plan was... So the Infinity Blade needed to be tuned, like Donald said. And they knew, or the Worker's Secrets knew, that the way to tune it was to actually to kill a Deathless. And by doing that, that would tune the sword. And they had to do it over and over and over and over again. So part of the plan was that Osar would be, he would do this, he would die over and over and over and over and over again. And but like Donald said, what he didn't realize was that the worker had, so even though Alsar betrayed him first, locked him away in the Vault of Tears,
he'd already gone through the process of whatever, again, I don't want to be too specific, but whatever process where they're like, okay, let's start aligning the Infinity Blade so that the next time you're killed, it will start this process of attunement.
Yes.
That's where the worker slipped in whatever genetic coding that would say the next time you die, your memory is going to be gone also.
Yeah.
And so Alsar had already had that process.
The way that we shouldn't get too much into it, but the way the Infinity Blade works is that it actually messes with someone's QIP signature and allows them to be killed for real. And I mean, we can get more into specifics of how Deathless work, but through that same process, you can also tweak someone's QIP, tweak their DNA a little bit, and change them. And this is what the worker secretly did as a part of their mutual betrayal, is that he changed it such that the next time he was killed by a specific weapon, that he would be changed, and that's what caused him to not only lose his memory, but to come back as a child instead of as a full-grown person like they normally do. And so that's where the whole Infinity Blade 1 loop comes from, where he not only, whenever he dies, he comes back as a child and has to go through his whole childhood again. That's why it's basically every 18 or 20 years when someone comes back, because he actually had a chance to grow up again and go back.
Yep.
Okay. So we've seen Alsar, and we've seen how he relates to the worker, and that the worker communicates with him about creating and destroying the world, on a similar basis as what he's been doing. So I'm assuming that Alsar came after the worker in terms of when they were originated. Is that correct?
That is probably too spoilery. Alsar is also very old.
So the origin of Alsar in relation to the worker is probably
that's
locked down for now.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. You can safely say that Alsar came after the Worker's Secrets.
Right.
Whether that's 5 minutes or 5,000 years, we won't say.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Alsar is very old.
Yeah, he's very old.
And like, even so, I've seen let's just get specific. Like I've seen some speculation that like Uriel is actually Alsar, or like Adron was Alsar.
No, so Uriel has no direct connection to you. So he just died.
Uriel went off and lived his life, and I imagine Uriel went back home, and the police showed up and found his murdered wife and a dead body laying in his driveway, and a disappeared son that can't be accounted for.
But his story is untold. Uriel is Ray Jarrett's father.
Yep.
And that's it.